being recorded. This is your opportunity that you can leave. But for everyone else, welcome. Um, Wanted to have this training for everyone to understand how we are handling the reporting for LFS, Local Foods for Schools. Everyone should have received their allocation of funds for this program. I had sent an email out about this in December, I believe, letting folks know what the funding was, and then had sent another email letting folks know when to expect the funding and the training or the reporting mechanism for LFS. Essentially, because we got this program started late, this is can be the funding you received can be applied retroactively back to the beginning of school year 24-25, as well as for eligible purposes in 25-26. All of the eligible purposes are the eligible products for the LFS program are either unprocessed or minimally processed foods. So obviously, unprocessed is going to be, fruits, vegetables, it could be like uncut pieces of meat, anything that is like ground meat or like milk, yogurt, cheese, etc. Those are minimally processed types of products that can be included here as long as there is no additional flavorings added to them. So if you have any questions about the applicability of specific products, you can feel free to send an email to me and I can let you know. My email address is cearl, E-A-R-L, at pa.gov. And I guess I should back up and introduce myself to everyone. Hi, Karen Long Earl, Director, Bureau of Food Assistance at the Department of Agriculture. But we really set this training up so that John, who works in our IT capacity, could walk everyone through what the relatively simple reporting for this is. The ideal part is that it does not require you to submit copies of any of your invoices. We would ask that you just hold on to that information in case we would get an audit question. But really, we're just looking to record the information about what you're purchasing and who you're purchasing it from, when you purchased it, and the value of it. So with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to John to walk us through this program. And then afterwards, we can open it up for questions.
Okie dokie. So as you can see on your screen here, I'm sharing my screen. This is our PAMeals application, which I imagine most of you are probably familiar with. If your school also participates in the National School Lunch Program, chances are you've already logged into this system. Not all schools that participate in this Farm to School program are also involved in NSLP, so this might be new for you. But this is our PAMeals system, and this is where you're going to go to submit your information. So before we get to the actual reporting, I wanted to go over a couple things first. Here, if we go up to the navigation menu and view accounts, we're logged into our test system here today. But as you can see, I've got two separate agreements here. So if your school does participate in National School Lunch, there'll be an entry here for your school as it relates specifically to National School Lunch, and then a separate agreement as it relates to Farm to School. So everything you do related to the Farm to School program is going to be kept separate from your NSLP agreement. So if you don't have a school agreement attached to your user account, you're going to go straight into the Farm to School agreement. But if you have both, then it'll take you to the screen here where you can choose which one you want to look at. So obviously for this training, we're going to look at the Farm to School agreement. So I'll click select here. And as we come down here, this is the primary address. This is kind of like the default mailing address as it, again, relates to the Farm to School program. If you look at this and you see that anything on here is not correct, you can submit corrections, and you do that by clicking this address update request button. And what that's going to do is it'll give you a form here that you can edit. You can change anything on the form here. Once you're done making your updates, click submit, and that's going to be routed to someone back at the Bureau. They'll review that information, and if once that gets approved, then it'll become available on this screen. But you won't be able to just change it directly. You'll have to submit your changes, and then once it's approved, it'll become part of your actual record. So scrolling down, we have the account administrators. Now, these are the people that have access to this particular agreement. More than likely, everyone in this list will have access to both the National School Lunch Agreement as well as the Farm to School, but that's not a guarantee. That's not 100% across the board. But if we open this up, these panels open up just by clicking the blue bar, and you can see here, I'm the only one that has access to this sample agreement. But the fact that my name shows up here means that I will have access to submit reports on behalf of this agency. The farm to school allocations, this is the money that was allocated to you. So this is the fiscal year. This is the total amount that was allocated. Now, as you submit reports and those reports get approved, this amount remaining is going to get drawn down. So you'll see this number start to go down. It's important to note the system does not stop you once you get to zero. You can still submit reports, and this number will go negative. That doesn't mean that you're going to get reimbursed for more than you were allocated. It won't stop you from submitting reports. But as you submit those reports and they get approved, you'll see this number go down. So if you occasionally check this, you can kind of see where you're at with your remaining funds. And then this panel here, Farm to School Reports, as we start to submit reports, this panel will start to fill up. It'll show the start and end period, the status of that report, and we can actually view those reports from here once we start entering those. And we'll come back to this screen after we submit one so you can kind of see what that looks like. So this is what we call the agreement details page. Any questions on this? You could just click the raise hand button on your within Teams if anybody has any questions. No? Okay. You'll find this is all very straightforward, but it's nice to have some kind of background information on it. So we want to go to this farm to school navigation menu item. If you don't have this and you think you should, shoot us an email and let us know. We just need to add an extra role to your user account. I think just about everybody on this call probably has this, but if you don't, let us know and we'll add it to your account. So if I go to Farm to School here, we've got a couple options here. We've got products, submit report, and vendors. So the first thing I want to look at here is products. Now, these are the items that you're going to be reporting that you purchased. These are the things you'll get reimbursed for. If I hit search, you'll see there's 25 items in total. The way we designed these products is we made them incredibly. Give that a second to come back. Okay. So anything that you would need to report is going to more than likely fall into one of these categories. If you need to report something that doesn't fall into one of these categories, just double check this list. And if it really is not in this list, email Karen and she'll consider adding it if it's an approved product. But for the most part, if you look here, we've got all your beef, your poultry, pork, milk, eggs, dairy, like I said, more than likely, whatever you need to report is going to fit into one of these categories. And if we go ahead and click this here, we can see that beef minimally processed is part of the meat/protein group. Go back to search. We have cheese, that's part of the dairy group. So that's going to be important when we go to submit. And I'll show you what I mean by that in just a moment. The second part to this are the vendors. Now, we did our best to try and pre-populate all of the vendors that we could. This is probably not a complete list. When you go to report, if the vendor that you want is not in this list, again, the first thing I would ask you to do is come to this search and just double check. Search by name, look at the address, make sure that if the vendor that you want is truly not in this list. If that's the case, I'll show you how you can submit a new vendor to the list. But we've got 261 vendors. There is a rule as it relates to the program that the vendor doesn't necessarily have to be in Pennsylvania, but they have to be within so many miles of your school. Karen, do you remember what that mileage was? I know it was
400
pretty
miles.
generous. What's that?
Yeah, 400.
400. So it is very generous, but they have to be within 400 miles of your school. So if they're not listed in here, potentially it's because they were too far or we just didn't add them in yet. But before you submit a new vendor for consideration, please just go over this list and make sure they're not really in here, because maybe you might have spelled their name wrong or something, and that's why they didn't come up. But those are the two parts to the report. So before we move on to the actual report, I'll ask if there's any questions regarding products or vendors.
I do have one question.
Sure.
So I have a local produce supplier that I buy produce from. Does that qualify, or do I need to make sure that where they get their produce from is from local places?
You would need to make sure that where they are getting their produce from is local. So you can't use this for bananas that are imported from another country. It needs to meet that 400-mile radius.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Is there another question?
Donna? You're on mute.
I think in the chat, she asked, are we to record products and vendor information? And the answer to that is yes. And John is going to walk through how the actual report gets submitted here.
Yep, that's what we're going to look at next. Any other questions? Nope. All right, let's move on to the report then. So if we go here to submit report, this is the main screen. Now, you're likely only going to see one entry here. Some people will have access to multiple agreements. And if that's the case, you'll see more than one entry here, and you would have to submit reports for each of those. But I think most of you are only going to have just one entry there. So you select the agreement, and reporting is done quarterly. So thankfully, you don't have to do this every month. You would just report quarterly. So you would select a quarter that you're reporting for, and you would click Start New Report. Now, I want to go back to that screen real quick. We've now started this report for January through March 2026. So this is an in-process report. It's not been submitted yet, but it has been started. Now, let's say you get distracted and you have to leave. You're not ready to submit it yet. when you come back to continue that report, you can do that one of two ways. If we go back to our agreement, and now we scroll down and we open this farm to school reports, you can see now we have one report that's in process, and we can click edit and we can continue editing this report. The other thing is, if you come here to this submit reports and you forget that you had already started it, once you select your agreement, it's going to warn you, hey, there are pending records for this account, and it'll show you right at the bottom here, so you can go ahead and edit this in the bottom. If you ignored that and you tried to submit this, start a new one again, it's going to give you an error message saying that there's already a report for this. So, if you see this down here, you can go ahead and just click edit to continue editing this report. Now, the way that reports are entered is you're going to select a vendor, and you're going to submit you're going to enter all of the products that you purchase from that vendor. Once you've done that, if you have other vendors you purchase from, you'll then select the next vendor and enter those products. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So let's say we bought from Milk Main Street. We select them. So I'm going to do it. Once I start typing, it's going to give me a list of matching vendors. And well, let's say here it was Castle Valley Mill. You need to actually select it from the list here. So now we've got Castle Valley Mill selected, and we can click add vendor items. Now we have to enter all the products that we purchased from this particular vendor, not other vendors, just the items that we purchased from Castle Valley Mill. Now, when you start typing here, this is going to give you a similar drop down. You can search on either the product name or the product category. So, for example, if I know what I bought was meat, if I type meat, these are all of the products that fall under the meat category. So I might, or I could just type part of the product name. So I could type pork, and then I only get obviously that. If it's a dairy item, we can type dairy, and we get the dairy items. So, like I said, if you need to submit something that doesn't show up here, search it first out on the product search, just to make sure it's not really there. But you'll find what you're looking for. So let's say we bought some unprocessed beef. Now we enter the pounds. And when it comes to entering pounds, we don't want you to enter partial pounds. If you bought 20.5 pounds, round that up, or round it up or down, round it to the nearest whole number. So we would just say 20 pounds, and the cost of that, I don't know what 20 pounds of meat cost. Let's just say it was $250. $250.10. So that was one item we purchased. We enter the information, we click add item. Now we go to the next thing. Let's say we bought, 10 pounds of eggs, and that was $55.45. So we're going to go and we're going to add all of those items that we purchased from this vendor. Once we're done with the items from this vendor, we'll click done. And now you'll see we have one line item here that is a summation of all of those things. Let's say you forgot something. You forgot to add an item under this vendor. We can go back and edit that. We can maybe we made a mistake. Maybe these eggs were from a different vendor. We can delete those. Or we can add, let's say we bought 10 pounds of cheese at $145.33. So we'll add that. So now we have our cheese there, and we got rid of the eggs. Once we're done, we hit done, and now we move on to the next vendor. Did you have a question? No?
John,
Okay.
there's actually two questions here. Well, there's three questions here. One is, can only one report be submitted per quarter?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
And then,
so in other words, don't submit until you're sure you've entered all the items. If you try to submit another report for a time period that was already started, it'll give you an error message.
And then the other question is, does everything need to be entered by pounds? And the answer is yes. And whenever we send the recording out, I can also put in the calculation to translate fluid ounces of milk into pounds, because I know I've gotten that question a lot. So I'll send something out for folks about that.
Okay. With these search boxes, it doesn't actually start searching until you type 3 characters. So you might notice it's not giving us any results. Once we type that 3rd character, we get some results. So let's say this was our next vendor that we purchased from. So we'll select that vendor and we'll click add items. And just like before, we'll now, let's say we purchase a minimally processed poultry, 100 pounds. Let's say this was, and we'll add that item, and that's all that we purchased from that vendor. So we've added that one item. Now we'll hit done. So now we've got these 2 vendor items here. If we need to walk away at this point, we're not ready to submit yet. Maybe you have some other purchases that you need to enter. You're just not ready. You don't have the paperwork on it right now. You can just close this out and come back to it later and continue where you left off. Or if you're good with this, you can finalize this report. If the vendor that you want to, or the vendor that you purchase items from is not in this list and you're sure they're not, you did a search and you're sure they're not in this list, you can click this link here and you can submit that vendor. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. We're going to call this test vendor. And so obviously you'll need the name and address. So we'll go ahead and hit save. Oh, I already have one. All right, test vendor 123. That's the one I just entered. Now, when you do that, that enters a temporary vendor into the system. You can still use that vendor in your report. So here's that one that I just entered, test 123, and I can go ahead and add products from that vendor. And I'll hit done. So again, this is the temporary vendor that we added into the system. I can also now finalize my report. When it comes to approving this report cannot be approved until this vendor is approved first. So as Karen is going through, or whoever is going through these reports and approving them, when they pull your report up, they're going to see that there's a temporary vendor on that report. They will have to review that vendor first and approve that vendor before your report can be approved. Now, there's a good chance that that vendor, for whatever reason, does not get approved. If the vendor does not get approved and they get rejected, your report will be kicked back to you, and there'll be a note saying, this vendor is not an approved vendor. Either remove those products from your report or choose a different vendor, or whatever the remedy is. But your report cannot be approved until that vendor is approved. But at least if the vendor is not there, it's not going to stop you from submitting that report. So if you need to add a vendor, go ahead and add that vendor, as long as you're sure that vendor doesn't already exist. Any questions on that? Because I know that might be maybe a little confusing. It's a lot of information. Yep. Mary Sue?
I do have a question. You said that our allocations could be backdated and we can only enter one per quarter, but we can do all those backdates anytime. So if I go
Well,
through my invoices from this previous year and the beginning of this year, I can sit down and do all those in one day and there's not going to be any issues.
right. So it's not, I mean, to say one per quarter is not really true. One per quarter per fiscal year. So we can do a January through March, 2024, 25, 26.
Now, the allocations that we have, they're running 2024, 2025, and 2025 to 2026. So we need
Karen,
to,
how far back do they go?
They can go back to the beginning of school year 24, 25. So purchases are eligible for school year 24, 25, and for 25, 26.
What I'm trying to
okay.
think, did we put those backdated ones in? I thought we only put the current ones in.
Oh, I thought we put the backdated ones in. If we didn't, we need to.
Um, before we're done, I'll check on that.
Okay.
If we haven't put the backdated ones in yet, we will put them in. Um, I can't recall if we did or didn't.
Okay.
So let's go back to this report that we started now, and we'll go ahead and finalize the report. And to do that, we put our digital signature here, and that's just typing our name in, and we'll hit submit. So that report now has been submitted. It's been sent off to the Bureau for review. If we go back to our agreement details and we look at our farm to school reports, you'll see that we have the status is submitted. So as that works its way through the work list, that status will change to under review, and then it'll either be approved or it'll be returned. So if you see that this is returned, you'll get an email as well saying that this report was returned, and it'll have whatever the reason being for the return. This will say edit instead of view. But because this is in a submitted status, about the only thing you can do is view it. So if we click view, it's going to open a pop-up here. And if you get an error message, or if you don't see anything, it's taking here just a minute for it to generate the report. But if you get a little message here that says pop-ups were blocked, you'll have to allow pop-ups from our site. So this is basically the report. This is what we submitted. So here's the first vendor. That's the total for that vendor. Second vendor, total for that vendor. Third vendor, there's the total for that vendor. And then the overall program total. So this report, this is basically what you will be reimbursed for, assuming everything gets approved. All right, any questions? Yes, Alicia. You're still on mute.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So my question is, how do I know which quarter had already been completed? So I'm new, I'm about 8 months in,
Oh,
and
sure.
I don't necessarily know, how would I know what was the last quarter that was completed? Or do I pick up from that point?
No, you can go right here. So if you go to accounts and view accounts, and you select your farm to school agreement, you would just scroll down to the farm to school reports and open that panel, and it'll show you all the reports that are in the system. So here you can see that this quarter was already submitted. So you can go, and obviously you don't want to resubmit this one. You might want to go and submit some backdated ones or some.
So what happens if I see nothing?
If you see nothing, then it means that nothing's been submitted yet. So you can start.
Oh, so okay.
So Karen, what would be the first quarter that they can submit?
The first quarter would be July through September of 24.
Okay. So if you have nothing there, you can start with July through September of 2024 and work your way up from there.
Okay.
And again,
And then another-
it doesn't have to be in any particular order either. I mean, you can jump around. It's up to you.
Okay, so from July of 2024, and the money that I get, do I have to break that up between the quarters, or if I can spend that within like 1 or 2 quarters, do I have to keep submitting the reports if I'm like done using that money?
No, you're
Well,
done,
I
you're
think it
done.
depends on, I think that depends on when you purchase those products. So those, the products that you submit for each of those quarters should be
Mm.
the items that you purchase during those quarters.
Got it. Okay.
Karen, what about this here? They use Cisco Allentown, not Cisco Pittsburgh.
I think both of them are in there.
Let's
I'd
take
have
a
to go
look.
back and look, but I thought I approved both. And again, just with Cisco, you just need to you need to ensure that
Hmm.
the product that you purchase there is a qualified local food.
Hmm.
Are they not showing in there at all?
No.
Okay, I'll have to go back and look because I thought that they were, I pretty certain I had entered both of them in there.
Let me go back here. I think I missed some questions. Um, so are we allowed to submit the expense after the period is over?
You should, yes.
Yeah, yes, you would, really, that's how you should do it because you want to wait until the end of the period so that you, um, are sure that you purchase everything you're going to purchase for that period. Now, if you purchase something at the beginning of the quarter and you know you're not going to purchase anything else, I mean, you can submit at any time. But certainly there's nothing stopping you from submitting after the period's over. If an SFS was allocated more funds than they can utilize between what action should be taken with the leftover money? So Karen, if they don't, let's say at the end of the fiscal year, they don't spend all the money.
Yeah, we will, we need to go back and look at that one. So, I mean, ideally, we would have done this as a reimbursement, but we didn't really have the option to do it that way. So, we provided the funds to the schools. But if you can't utilize it over that 2-year period, I will have to get back to you on that one.
So this question about milk, I think you answered part of that. Flavored milk is not an approved product. But as far as so Karen, would regular milk and 2% milk, those are both approved and those could be reported as just one total.
Yeah, so if it's like if it's unflavored skim milk, unflavored 1%, now if you're buying 2% or whole milk, yeah, that can all be combined. It's just that it can only be unflavored milk. Flavored milk is not considered minimally processed because it has flavoring added. So it can only be unflavored milk.
So can you submit the same vendor and same items for each quarter? Yeah, there's no restriction on. I mean, if you buy eggs from a vendor 4 times a year, you can submit that 4 times a year. So, yep, no problem there. Where
For
will the where? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
so I was going to answer Mary's question. There is no reimbursement portion. You have already received the funding for LFS via PDE. So there is no separate portion to be reimbursed. It's just this is now reporting to show that you have expended these dollars. And then for the question for purchases from Cisco, I mean, I honestly don't know how Cisco ordering works, like inventory ordering and reporting. But I suppose if there is not a way to verify that it's a local product that you purchased from Cisco, then you won't be able to use that product.
So Karen, here's a good question. Uh, what happens if they report their reports get approved and their amount goes down to 0, but they still have more items to report. Do you want them to continue reporting those?
You can, but you don't have to. I mean,
Okay.
minimally, we basically need reporting to justify that the dollars have been expended.
Okay, question here. Can we confirm the reimbursement portion? We've already received funding through FAI for LFS. Is there a separate portion that is to be reimbursed? Oh, you answered
Yeah.
that already.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna let Joe go here because I know he's had his hand up for a while.
Just to piggyback on the question of purchasing something from Cisco, because I've been at this long enough to know to ask this question, especially when it comes to dealing with them. If, say, for example, they have a lettuce product and I have emailed to my sales rep from Cisco and they say that it comes from X farm that's located in Northern Virginia, then my end of that deal is covered just in case for some reason they decide to swap out for a different product.
Yes, I would just keep, keep that verification on file. And similarly, Maria's asking too about what backup information. I mean, essentially, you will want to keep, copies of the invoices, or, any type of emails like that to verify. I mean, I think that, that can all be kept electronically too. I don't envision that we are going to need to come back and look at them, but it is quite possible that we could need to. And so, I believe that's information you would keep for your PDE reviews anyway, but correct me if I'm wrong.
We good with that then?
And then
Yeah,
the
that's good.
question,
I just wanted to verify with you, and because I've dealt with ordering from distributors there. You make an agreement on a product, and on the back end they'll just sub without any further follow up on my end. So I just want to make sure that
yeah,
my
yeah, no,
documentation is in order.
yep, yeah. As long as you retain that documentation from your salesperson that they're saying that's where the product is coming from, that's sufficient for this. I mean, we know that we know that there can be human error. We know that there could be intentional error. But I mean, you to the best of your ability, we're trying to purchase local foods through Cisco. So yes, that's sufficient for us. And then
So
I think oh, go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
well, I was gonna say, does that answer Nancy's question as well? She was asking about how do we know if it's, what qualifies for local foods if you say you purchase from Cisco.
Yes. Yeah.
And the second part of that question, is there something on the invoice that will qualify it as local? I think the answer to that is no. Right?
Yeah,
They don't.
I'm guessing again, like I don't see the invoices necessarily. So if Cisco isn't indicating that, then yes, you would need to verify that information with your salesperson.
This question here, if we go back to July 24, why did my business manager give me a start date of this month, January 22nd? The reason for that is the system just recently went live, and we wanted to wait until this training happened before people started submitting reports. So that's probably why you were given the January 22nd date. It getting the system up and running has sort of been a bit of a process. What information has to be kept for the purchases? I think that would just be the invoices, right, Karen?
Yes.
So just keep your invoices for what you purchased.
And in the case of Cisco, if there's any emails that are necessary as well.
Okay, so Karen, there's a note here from Mary. I think that's related to the previous question, and that's more for you, I think, than me.
Yeah, I think she was just answering the question about perhaps that's why the business manager said that they only go back to January.
Performance Food Service and Blue Ribbon Farm Dairy is not on the list. If that's the case and you have purchased from them, just go ahead and add them using that process I showed you when you go to submit your report, and then you should be good.
And then
When
when
do
are these
these allocations need to be
allocations?
used by?
Yeah, they are retroactive back to July of 2024. They all have to be used by June 30 of 2026.
So get your reports in. Heather has a question. Go ahead, Heather. You're on mute. You'll need to click the little microphone icon, the upper right hand of your screen. No? If you want, just go ahead and you can type it into the chat. While she does that, we have another question. If a person adds a new vendor, will it become active for all users? Yes, it will. So, as these reports start to come in, our vendor list will get better and better. Heather, you can just type your question in here if you're not able to unmute your mic. And after this training is done, if you have additional questions that we didn't cover today, you can always email Karen. If it's a technical question, you can email me. Somebody will get back to you. You're trying to add the vendor and product. It's not adding to the report. So what are you getting an error message? What? Heather, I tell you what, why don't we let's wait until the end of this session is done, and then you can stay on and I'll stay on, and we'll see if we can figure it out. Maybe you can share your screen and I can see what you're doing and I can help you with that then.
Heather, it may also be that when you enter the vendor, I have to go in and approve any vendors that are requested before you can add them into the report.
No, Karen, actually, that's not
Oh,
true.
okay.
Once they add those temporary vendors in, they can immediately add them to the report. But before you'll be able to approve that report, you will have to review that vendor and approve that vendor first.
Okay. Okay.
So you can, as you add those vendors in, you can use them immediately, but they're considered temporary records, not approved vendors yet. Any other questions? Karen, somebody wanted to go through this webinar again. Where will they be able to find that?
Yeah, we will send a copy of the recording out to everyone. So it might not be till Monday, but I will have Sue do that.
Cottage cheese and yogurt, is that processed?
They are both considered to be minimally processed, so they could be counted.
So with that, let's see, what do we
So
have here? So
yogurt, I know is
yogurt.
there.
Actually, yogurt, we don't have a separate category for that. So
Because all
just
yogurt is minimally processed.
okay. And cottage cheese, I guess, would just fall under cheese. So again, cheese doesn't have the two separate entries.
Yeah, I mean, we can add cottage cheese as a product.
So Karen, even if the yogurt is flavored, does that?
Has to be unflavored, just like milk has to be unflavored.
Might not be a bad idea for us to change that category from yogurt to unflavored yogurt.
And unflavored milk, yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna make a note of that. Any more questions? No? Everybody's good to go, right? Okay. Like I said, if you think of anything after we're done here, and yes, Heather, I know, except you, I want you to hang on. If you have any questions after we're done here, if it's a business related question, you can shoot that off to Karen. If it's strictly a technical question, you can go ahead and email me. Also, there's an email here on the homepage that you can use. So you can either email me directly if you have my email from this meeting request, or you can send it to this technical help email that's on the homepage.
John Kelly's asking if they can add a vendor without starting a report.
No, not really. You'd have to be in the middle of submitting a report to be able to add a vendor. If they have one that they want to submit and they really are not ready to add a vendor, they could just email. I would say email Karen the information and she can add it in for you. Denise has a question here. No, flavored milk is not a valid product, only white milk. And that can be full fat milk, 2%, but it has to be unflavored.
Donna's asking, what is the website? Donna, do you mean the website for PAMeals?
I went ahead and put the link to the website in the chat.
Okay. And then who is responsible to do this report, the SFA or Food Service Management Company? I'm guessing that would probably vary by school. I would think the SFA, but if there is a Food Service Management Company who is contracted to, do all of this type of work, including the reporting, then I believe it would be them.
And Donna, that link that you typed in, you were just missing the www part at the beginning. All right. Heather, I will call you on that number, but I would like you to stay on this Teams call because I want you to share your screen so I can see what you're seeing. Okay. I think we're good to go.
All right, thanks
Email us if you have
everyone.
any additional questions.
And as I mentioned, we will send an email with a follow-up with the recording, and my contact information will be included in there, as well as the email address for technical help. So thank you, everyone.